Let's have some fun. Hey, it's Nog Chats, where I, Nogarremi, chat. Joining me today is somebody that I've commentated with a couple of times, MrMostafles, in the future.
We're doing the Midwestern goodbye again.
Yes, I'm very good at it, as you can tell, but I'm also really good at the Irish goodbye. Back to the present. How you doing? I didn't leave a pause at all, by the way.
Oh, you did.
I threw you entirely off.
Yeah, I was like, when's it coming?
Never.
Okay. I'm doing good. Doing good. Super happy to be here. Really excited to support this for you. Anything and everything that you do, I'm happy to help and be a part of. And the fact that we get to do this and we get to talk about stuff that we're both passionate about is really, really cool. And I like that you're having the initiative to do this. We had some FGC podcasts that were pretty regular for a while, and now they've kind of, hung up in the void. And I like that you're, bolstering up and giving it a shot. And I think it's been going great so far. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, it's just one of the things where I was like, I have a bunch of people that I only talk to when I'm on commentary with them, and then I never talk to them outside of that, and I'm getting real sick and tired of it. I want to talk to these people, which is unfortunately, but I also didn't want to do too much work, which is why it's a bi-weekly podcast, so it releases every other week, and I still can't keep that schedule.
I know.
But I do try to get it out every other week and chat with a whole bunch of my people. So we've had Joe Monday on, Sriracha Flash, Thomas Winkley, and Lizardman so far, and now yourself.
Yeah.
So welcome.
No place else I'd rather be.
Yeah, and you just got done doing a pretty large event, right? Last night you commentated for a Utah event sponsored by Facebook for $1,000.
Yeah, so a couple weeks back, our good friend and fellow up-and-coming commentator Thomas Winkley reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I've got this thing coming up, and I'm trying to reach out to people that I like on commentary, and that I want to give shots to, especially on something a little more prominent, I guess, right?" And he asked if I want to do it, and my initial response was, of course. But then part of the concern was that I had another prior engagement, which was Stack Bradford's Stream Team Battle Exhibition. That was going on the same day, but we were able to work it out that the schedule could be kind of shifted and I could do both events. But last night was the SLC Bar Fights event for Utah and Facebook Gaming. They were the sponsors, amongst other people. But it went well. That was, I think, out of the events I've commentated, that was probably like something more of a marquee event. There's a good pot bonus, like you were mentioning, $1,000 put up by Facebook Gaming, but it was a really, really good time.
The biggest reason why I bring up the money is because it usually means that there's more eyes watching the broadcast, whether they're sponsor eyes or just people like just watching it. Always gonna get some good viewers from that. And it brings out usually the better players who might not join, some of the regular local tournaments that are happening, every single week or every month with bar fights.
Yeah, and that's something that we absolutely saw, at least in regards to competitors. So, the first one that stood out to me was Gustavo, 801 Strider. I never see that dude, and outside of like CPT stuff this year, I never see that dude enter online tournaments. And different strokes for different folks. That's his prerogative, and I don't blame him for not wanting to compete either seriously or for money online. It's a hellscape. But also in the time of COVID, when the end is kind of nowhere in sight, and we don't know when offline events are going to come back. If there's a decent amount of money put up, you don't have to travel anywhere. You're maybe a little bit more invigorated with the new season, with the patch. He decided to give it a shot. He got top 8. It was fun to watch. It was really cool to see him, but you definitely did have a bunch of heavy hitters tonight that otherwise, maybe would have just rather sat at home on the couch and watched or something.
Yeah, absolutely. But you could really see the people that placed top 3 and got a lot of the money, are the people that are entering a lot of these online tournaments, right? Chris CCH, Eli the Curry, and Seville, right? All placing top 3, and you can always find, them entering, whether it's the online local West Coast, Wednesday night fights, those are really
Mm-hmm.
the only two consistent
Yeah.
West Coast tournaments. There's some Portland scene stuff that occasionally Sevalay will enter, but it's usually there's not too many West Coast tournaments like there are on the East Coast where they're happening
Yeah.
every single day of the week.
Right.
But it comes and goes with the territory. So the fact that they do enter a bunch of events and we're able to you could see how that pays off for them, especially
Mm-hmm.
with the new season. A whole bunch of changes, right? 5 days after everything changed. So Chris CCH won with Sakura. Really
Yeah.
appreciating the life buffs they did. Eli got second with Ryu.
Well, so Ryu was used in grand finals. I didn't see the earlier parts of the bracket to know if he used Ryu otherwise.
Okay.
But his Ryu was the real deal. It was clear that there was maybe some like unfamiliarity there, whether that was due to the new tools and adjustments that were made to his kit, or it could just be that like he hadn't actually put any serious time into the character prior and decided to pick him up, when he saw the crazy buff list that Ryu got. But nevertheless, he very much understands that character's basic game plan, and it was working. He just needs to polish it up a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's definitely speaking of him, like maybe not knowing the character that well. That's something that he and Mira have been going
Hmm.
through, right? Like they're getting every character in the game up to diamond, going through ranked
Yeah.
and everything like that. So they are looking to understand the cast and have a good understanding of what each character does and how they want to play and
Hmm.
what ranges they want to play at. And honestly, it makes you really well versed in playing the entire cast. It makes you
Yes.
really well versed in fighting the entire cast because you kind of
Mhm.
you understand their mindset and stuff like that. So
Yeah, if you're like getting a character up to diamond is like once you reach a certain level of competency and prowess in Street Fighter 5, I guess specifically that's what we're talking about. Getting a character to diamond is going to be exponentially easier than your first time around.
right.
But even that being said, getting a character, excuse me, getting a character up to diamond is no quote unquote easy task. Even if you are a person who has gotten top 8 at majors, there are still character archetypes that you just don't jive with for whatever reason, right? So doing that for
Yeah.
that's something to write home about, and I honestly I super respect them for that. And like that being a point of content creation, I also think is just a really smart like branding move. I think it makes for good content.
Yeah, they've been streaming most of it. I know their grind with Monat was, I believe,
Yeah.
their most hated that they did. So it you run into that, like you mentioned it, the character archetype. Sometimes something doesn't jive with you. But I know Eli's thing this year has been no bad matchup. So if
Yeah.
he thinks he's gonna run into a bad matchup, he's just gonna swap the character. And doing something like that, where you're practicing every single character and you kind of know what matchups you want to use them all for, 100% okay with that, right? Because it's not even just like
Yeah.
a pure pocket pick. We're just like, oh, I learned this character specifically for this matchup. It's like, no, I learned this character, and yeah, I'm going to use them for this matchup, but I understand overall how they want to play, and if I needed to, I can
Yeah.
play them in other situations too. But
Right.
on the other side of things, you can't let that get into your head too much and be like, oh, I think I can do this with this character, right? Or I think
Yeah.
this character has
Mhm.
the best matchup. That's I think something that he didn't say, right? He's not going to try to pick the best matchup that
Yeah.
a character has. He'll pick what he feels is best for himself,
Hmm.
and
And I
so it's mostly to avoid the bad ones.
Yeah, and again too, like there's really something to be said, especially in the age of social media where uh the notion and almost like religious devotion to the idea of a tier list is so at the forefront for a lot of people. And part of it, there's definitely a part of it that's like the joke of it, right? You see Justin Wong making crazy tier lists, other people hopping on board. It gets people talking, it gets people, having their hot takes and what have you, right? But there's also another subset of people who like seem to really live and die by tier lists. And I think frankly, I've always been of the opinion that it's like pretty short-sighted. It's like I understand the notion, you're able to some degree that you can evaluate characters objectively within the frame of the meta and the engine that the game has, and decide which characters are good and which characters struggle more. But there are so many people that like even like getting new into fighting games that they're like, okay, I only want to play characters that are good. And it's like if you're not like if it's not a character that melds with you and you're having fun, I don't care if you're playing ST Akuma. It's not going to make the difference. And I harken back to I think it was like what Evo 2014 or 2013 when Daigo picked up Yoon in AE. It's like that was probably the best character in the game, but he got washed in top 8 by Punko because it's like he's not a Yoon player. He plays Shotos. He's whether Shotos or Guile. It's been those two things for
Well,
600 years.
well, he plays boxer in ST.
I mean, what yeah, sure, but nevertheless, when we think of Daigo, we have this idea, and
We put him that he's Ryu, right?
right, yeah,
Like he played so much for you. Even in ST, he has a real
yeah,
solid
right,
Ryu.
right.
But in Third Strike, he played Kin because Kin did everything Ryu did but better, which is
Yes,
why
exactly.
there are tier lists. And I think there's also an example
Hmm.
of that in one of the Mortal Kombat games where I think there's Smoke and Scorpion, and Smoke just has all the better
Yeah.
combos, or maybe it's Smoke and
Hmm.
Noob Saibot. It's like the Smoke does everything better and gets more damage from every single conversion hit that
Hmm.
the lower tier character would get. And so sometimes there's
Hmm.
things like that where that's why we saw a bunch of Ryu players jump ship to Akuma if they wanted more
Of course.
offense, or Guile if they wanted to play more of a fireball game at the end of a season 1.
Hmm.
Because Ryu didn't have an identity.
Yeah.
He was long, like he got hit so hard that there was no reason to play him. Any other character in the game got more off of each hit if they
Yeah.
just played
Right.
as long as they weren't Ryu, they could get more conversions or more damage or
Yeah.
have better zoning opportunities or something like that. So tiers exist, but it should never be the end all be all, right?
Yes.
Because
Yeah. That's.
and this is you mentioned this, like especially when you're starting out, right? When you're
Hmm.
starting out, there's no reason to stick to the tier list, right? You
Exactly.
are missing so many skills that make the top tier
Hmm.
characters top tier that it's not going to matter.
Yep. I
Uh,
couldn't have said it better.
and it's just one of the things where just play, have fun, right? It's a video
Yes.
game.
Right.
As much as competition, rah rah rah, money. This is the FGC.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of money to be had. Uh,
Right.
Especially in online, there's little bits of money everywhere, but there's never
Hmm.
like, man, this is a tournament and I can win 10K from this tournament.
Right.
It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Not in the current that thing, and that really can loop back into commentary. I was reading a Twitter
Yeah.
thread, I believe yesterday, where a dude was like, "Yeah, I really
Oh.
think I have a talent for commentary. My friends all think I'm really
Yeah.
good at it."
Hmm.
Uh, but I got they were in it's COVID times, it's financial, the rough financial situations and
Hmm.
everything like that. And he's like, "But I have to do it for money," and just like the FGC is not the place to get
Right.
into commentary for money. And we both kind of experienced it where
Sure.
I've been commentating since late 2017, mostly for
Hmm.
free.
Yeah.
And when I do get paid, it's very specific events,
Hmm.
or I get offered to get paid by locals that I know don't really have the money to consistently
Right.
pay me, and I'm like, I can't
Right.
take this money and feel good
Yeah, not in
about
good
this.
conscience.
It's like we can either make the prize pool for this tournament $100, or we can have Nogarremi on commentary. I'm like, make the prize pool $100,
Yeah,
and I'll be on
please.
commentary anyway. Like, this is a local tournament. You're trying to build up your scene.
Right.
Don't prioritize me over that,
Yeah.
because bigger events will mean better money eventually.
Sure. Right.
And it's just not the thing that you get into this kind of thing, right? You got to grind a lot to get good at
Hmm.
commentary and to get your brand out there, to feel like you have a cohesive kind of approach to how you
Hmm.
commentate and everything like that. It takes time, it takes dedication, and you can't just drop in the middle of that and just like, you can be a really good commentator, start right in the middle of everything, but you're not going to get paid. You're not going to beat out the people that
Right.
are known, right? So this is
Hmm.
always the big thing for any a tour event, and why it's so amazing that St. Colo got to where he is at, which is
Right.
through a lot of hard work. But two,
Yes.
you have to get through that short list of people that these tours are always going to go with. So if
The
you aren't
regulars. Yep.
if you aren't a Sage Jam or a James Chin and Ultra David, a
Mm-hmm.
vicious orange, right? Like or even like a yipes, right? You're not gonna
Mm-hmm.
just get a random offer to be on a tour because you're new to commentary and you think you're hot, and
Right.
everybody might think you're hot. Like this is a classic age old me. I've had people tell me, hey, you should make a reel, you should do blah blah
Right.
blah blah blah, get into the CPT. I'm like, yeah, that would be great and all, but like I have other priorities in my life that have to come first.
Sure. Right.
So I can't prioritize that way. As serious as I am about commentary, it's not going to happen. So, yeah, there's steps you have to take, things you need to do to get your name out there, uh, and it's very important to kind of do all that and go through the trials, because that's what lets
Yes.
the larger production staff know that you're dedicated. You're
Yeah.
this is something you're serious about. This is something you're getting more into, and you got to constantly put your best foot forward and constantly improve that best foot that you're putting forward, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I remember when like this year was when because of COVID, if there is a silver lining, it's that it afforded me the opportunity to do something I always wanted to do, and that was take commentary more seriously. Now, living in the Midwest, I can commentate my locals, our monthlies, and stuff up in Michigan, stuff down in like Cleveland, if anything's going on over in Indiana. I have some opportunities, but it's few and far between. And so if there is a silver lining to COVID, it's afforded me the opportunity to commentate these really well-known events, Wednesday night fights, Salt Mine League. I've done Casa once because of my work schedule, but I want to do Casa more. Doing the stuff with Stack on the Saturdays and doing this Utah event. Like I've had the opportunity that I otherwise wouldn't, and it's been an
Yeah.
absolute blessing. But like one thing when I was first getting into it more heavily this year, talking to St. Cola, and you touched on it, but like nothing but love and praise and adoration for that dude. He has been such a such a good, helpful, like what do I want to say? Like
He's the homie.
endearing. Yeah, yeah, obviously the homie. Obviously the homie.
Yeah, but
Uh
all that entails, right? He's endearing. He's always willing to help. He's there for you.
yeah,
Like when you need the pick me up and everything like that. The
right.
dude is fantastic.
Yeah. And in talking with him when I was first getting started, we both were honest about the fact that like there's not exactly a blueprint for this. There are people who have been doing it for a long time and they've succeeded, and you can kind of retrace their footsteps a bit, but there's, commentary in the FGC hasn't been established for as long as the FGC has been around. The FGC has been around for, the better part of 30 years now, if in some cases a little bit longer. But like commentating live events, it's only really been a thing for like 15, 10 to 15, and even that's arguable. So it's still relatively fresh. And then if you compare it to something, like traditional esports like StarCraft or Counter-Strike
CS:GO.
or
Yeah.
yeah, CS:GO, any of that stuff, uh, there's a much more clear-cut path that those people who are trying to get into the broadcasting side of it can follow. And now some of that's also probably tied to the like actual wherewithal of those scenes. There's a lot more money, like we touched on as well, in those scenes compared to something like this. So it's easier to guide production and broadcasting and almost have this like rule sheet that you can follow. It's like you start here, you end up here because we don't have to worry about where the money's coming from for X, Y, and Z. And they have to see that's not the case. So it really takes, like you were saying, it really takes that deliberate hard work and dedication. It absolutely has to be present. You have to be willing, and this, it sucks, but it's the truth. If you want the chance, you absolutely have to be willing to come at this from the angle of a passion project for either a long time or potentially the whole time that you're trying to do commentary in the FTC. It just really depends. A lot of people, I can think of like two people that do this full time, and that is Sagem, who even that's arguable now because he streams so much, and that's part of his brand. And then the
Right.
other is like Tasty Steve. Other than that, and you have a bunch of, quote unquote, a bunch of top level commentators across a multitude of different games, but they all have other, like, whether it's a full time job, whether it's like, a side hustle from streaming, whether it's X, Y, or Z, there are other means to supplement their income. So
Right, like Ultra David's a lawyer.
Yeah,
So
right. Yeah, James
I've
Chen, was a programmer for so long.
yeah, who I believe has been, mostly just chilling through streaming, and
Yeah,
I don't know if he does a Patreon, but
I think he does.
it's a lot of that is they didn't get to, like, you talk about Sajam and James Shin, and you look at, the examples of people who can make a living off of being commentators alone, and they had to do it for a long time without
Yep.
getting a lot
Yes.
of money for it. They
Hmm.
had to build up a brand and become a personality in order
Yep.
to be worth watching by hundreds or thousands of people at
Yep.
once. And now the fruits of their labor are paying off and allowing
Yep.
them the ability to say no on some projects, right?
Right. Right. Yeah, and I like you really hit the nail on the head. Like that branding is so important. And there's a part of it like that's just the game we play, right? Like they're no longer like it's not they worked hard enough to be no longer be Steve Lyon or James Chen. Now it's Sajam and Jay Chenzor, or Ultra David rather than David
Excuse me.
Graham.
It's JC Hensor, please.
You're right. You're right. JC Hensor. Let me fix my face. You're right. But that
Oh, what a
branding is
callback.
that branding is so important because once you've established yourself for that aspect, and it's not even just commentary, it's in production, it's in being a player, it's in being a TO, people recognize what sorts of unique qualities you can bring to the scene, and if you're good enough at it and you do it enough times, they look for that when they're going to watch or attend an event. Um, I you think of the Hado, and it's like, oh, that's Combo Breaker. I have to be there because his work ethic and his love and passion and care shines through more than basically any other event on the planet. And that's part of that branding. And Rick would probably hate me saying that. I don't know that he would be happy to hear that, like, that's a branding thing, but like that's the truth, right? They associate it with him and his staff. And so establishing that branding is so
Yeah,
important to make a mark.
the combo breaker brand is, that style of tournament, right? That's going to be well
Hmm.
run. It's going to include everything under the sun. I can't
Hmm.
imagine their event not trying to run like 30 games in a weekend,
Yeah.
and it blows my mind that he does it. And I'm so upset that year after these, past 2 years, really just 1 year at this point. It feels like it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
2020 and 2021, they're just not going to be combo breakers.
Ugh,
Really, really breaks my heart,
it's
because
rough.
2020 I couldn't attend, but 2021 I was like thinking, if the
Oh,
vaccines
have
start
you never
becoming
been?
better and everything. No, I actually haven't been to a
Oh
combo
my
breaker.
God.
Uh, I never quite had enough money to
Yeah,
make
sure.
it, so that's the way that it goes.
Yeah,
But it's something that I'm looking forward to,
of
and
course.
one day,
Yeah.
if it's able to come back around. But that's another big part of it, right? Being able to network yourself and know people
Yes.
like Rick the Hado, or getting into the Street Fighter side of things, knowing the production people over there. So if you're
Mhm.
looking at Tenno Productions and stuff like that,
Right.
getting in and knowing those people, it's going to make a big difference, right? Anybody
Yeah.
that is in those organizations or has a say in those organizations for their tours, and getting able to be like, hey, look, I kind of have something going
Hmm.
on here. If you want to, if you ever have a spot, to put me on a short
Yeah.
list of replacements and stuff like that, to
Hmm.
kind of get yourself in there, it can do good work for you. You always have to be trying to network yourself, not
Yep.
just to people that kind of get to make the decisions, but your other commentators too. Uh,
Absolutely.
Everybody that I'm on commentary with is a joy to be on with. There's some that need more work. There's some that are
Sure.
fantastic in their own right, and I try to help out wherever I can. Right,
Same.
so Flexus has World Rivals going on now, and so they're doing
Yeah.
an event later today, and it was just like, she was on commentary with me for the G Fuel stuff
Yeah.
on Friday, and she was like, "Hey, I might need somebody else for Sunday." I was like, "Yeah, I can definitely be available if you need somebody. Just hit me
Nice.
up, and stuff like that." I was planning on watching the event anyway, so I have this time
Hmm.
blocked out. You just
Right.
gotta, like, I was planning to support anyway, so
Right.
if I can support you by hopping on commentary because
Right.
somebody has to drop out, just let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And being there, or with Tom, right? Tom asked me to be on the Facebook thing. I'm like, listen, I got a tournament that's literally the exact same time, and I don't think
Right.
we can move it. I can't make it. I want to, and I appreciate
Right.
the offer, but I'm really just stuck here.
Yeah.
I say stuck, but I was commentating the new challenger
Oh yeah, yeah,
charity
yeah.
event
Right, right, right.
yesterday, where
Mm-hmm.
we raised 420 dollars
Yo,
and 69 cents,
nice. Hell, incredible. Fucking nice, dude.
which is weird because we ended the tournament and like it was over and we made 200, which was our goal. It was a 5-week series to raise some money for Child's Play. We hit
Yeah.
200 by the end of it, and then we finished it, turned off the stream, everything like that. I get a message 20 minutes later from Lizardman being like, yeah, this person donated and now we're at 420.69. I'm like, nice.
That's so sick. Um,
Yeah.
something that you mentioned just a minute ago was there's, and I think, it's been really encouraging to me. Not that I never really had a reason to feel otherwise, but because I wasn't as, I guess, involved in the commentary side of things for so long, because I just didn't have the opportunity. I would commentate when I was available, but like, again, just because of where I live, it was slim pickings, maybe a couple
Right.
times a year or whatever. But now that I'm having this opportunity to commentate all these online events, it's become very apparent to me there's a real camaraderie amongst us. At least with those of us who are like this like younger roster, right? Or this newer roster, the people who are coming up trying to make the name for themselves and trying to establish our brands respectively. And it's always, whether it's like you, Tom, Flexus, St. Cola, whoever, like we're always reaching out to each other and like either just directly supporting and like sharing and liking stuff on social media, or engaging or watching in the chat, or like being like, hey, I know about this event, somebody asked me, I can't do it but I want to pass it along to you, or like, hey, I'll pass your name along to this person, maybe we can commentate this event together. There's so much help, and it's not crabs in a bucket, right? We're all trying to spread love, and I think that's so important because, like, obviously there's an aspect of it that is, I think, inherently competitive. You can't deny it because we all want to get better. We all want, to be on the big stage and on the big show. And so there's an aspect of it where you can't deny that, like, okay, I have to work a little bit harder than this guy. But it's not to the point where we don't want to see anybody else succeed. We just want to be the best version of ourselves. And if we notice somebody else is putting in the work, they're getting the spots, and it's like, okay, well, I've got more work to do. So it's more of a
Yeah.
self-challenge. But there's such an effort to just be like inclusive and compassionate and
It's never
really
about putting
encouraging.
other people down. It's about lifting
No.
everybody up,
Yes. Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And
And it's
it's
beautiful.
a very fighting game mindset, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want everybody to be bad and then you're all alone at the top shining. You
Right.
want the challenge. You want
Yes.
the need to drive yourself forward, right? Like even though we don't directly compete with each other, we're commentators, so we usually have to work as a team. But there is
Right.
this thing where it's like, yeah, so like if because St. Cola right now is big, like it's like
Yeah.
this dude had he's made it to the big stage, he's doing this and that. Have you listened to his bars, drop his flow that he has? you know
Right.
you have to respect that and been like, man, that sounds really nice. How can I move
Yeah.
my own
Hmm.
style or craft forward to match that or to get to that level,
Right.
where you don't sound like them. You don't, like, the point isn't to emulate each other because we're all different people.
Hmm.
We all have a different sound. We've all nurtured this different sound, whether we've kind of wanted to or not. It's kind of just how
Hmm.
your brain thinks and processes and says words, and you
Right.
lean into that the more that you do it.
Hmm.
But you have to look at that and be like, I can do better, right? Look at that level he's at. I
Yeah.
can do better. There was a time
Hmm.
I was on Assault Mine League with St. Color. It's the one where he does the big, V trigger 2, long have wheel weighted, everything like that. Like, he popped off big at that, and I had no response to it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
What do you
if
say?
no, not even like in that one moment. That entire tournament, it was St. Cola doing St. Cola things, and I
Yeah.
felt like I was just there. And he might not agree with me on that one. He loves me to death, which is fantastic. I love it.
Right.
But there's times where I know I didn't do, or I
Yes.
wasn't matching him in terms of
Hmm.
being the level of commentator. It's not about
Yeah.
being, again, not about being him and being the one that gets to do long have we waited, blah 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 blah. That's,
Hmm.
that's not me. I look at that, I'm like, that's a little corny. I ain't doing it.
Damn, that's how you feel?
It's funny, don't get me wrong. It's just I don't have the energy to pull it off.
Right.
Like
No, I
you
totally
hear
get
him
it. I
do it and you're
totally get
like,
it.
damn, that sounds
Yeah,
hype. You
that's
hear me
fucking
do it and you're
tight,
like,
right?
you hear me do it and you're like, what is this guy say? He doesn't believe in this, right? St. Cole read that and he believed in it. All right. So, props to him for doing that. But that tournament, I was sitting there looking, I'm like, I really have just been going through the motions in commentary for like a
Sure.
past like 3 or 4 weeks. And
Hmm.
I need to sit back and reevaluate and see how I'm doing stuff. And it happened to me again, right? It was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was actually this past week. He got back from CPT and I was chilling on the drink. And
Yeah.
I was just sitting there thinking, we were discussing some things and he's like talking about some of the stuff, and I just had this epiphany of like, I haven't been having fun on commentary recently. How
Really?
do I change that?
Interesting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Not to like, this isn't like a therapy session, but that's just interesting. I wouldn't have guessed to hear that.
It wasn't like I wasn't having fun watching matches or being on the microphone, but I could, looking back on it and being self-reflective, I could feel like, I was kind of just going through the motions, and
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I was just like, okay, blah 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 does this, blah 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 does that,
Okay,
blah 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 does
sure.
this, and it just real dry and boring. And I hope anybody that has listened to me like in the past week has realized that Nogarremi is just having fun on the microphone. I think it started
Yeah.
last week on Thursday. I made a whole bunch of Z's nuts jokes
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
on Digital Havoc, and I was
Yeah.
having a ton of fun doing it. And then I believe Tuesday roll around, I'm on Juicy Game Night. That's a
Mhm.
Florida tournament.
Yeah, yeah, you and Flexus.
Yeah, we were on. Yeah, we were on, and I was just going in on like stupid heat jokes and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
I was having a ton of fun with it, and then it was, I can't remember if it was Thursday or Saturday, not Saturday, Friday, and the I don't know what it was, but like I would be nice and humorous and whatever, and then somebody else would say something about me, and I would just do like the driest take ever of like, oh yeah, very very funny, and everybody else would start laughing. I'm like, I didn't realize that was funny, which would make everybody else laugh again. I'm like, all right,
Right.
this is what you want from me, okay. But again, it
Are
was a
you?
ton of fun.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils back down to. And we talked on
Yes.
this at the beginning of like, hey, if you're gonna get into this, like, it's a passion project. You have to have fun
Hmm.
doing this. And I was getting to the point where I'm like, you know what? I haven't mixed anything up. I've just been,
Sure.
kind of my neutral self. Oh, that's the line I was gonna bring up from Saint Cole. He was like, you gotta be yourself on the mic.
Yeah.
And not like dress it up esportsy and stuff like that, which I have that aspect to me, but
Hmm.
this is always something that I go through and struggle with. To get a little more deeper here is, who is Nogarremi, right?
Sure.
Like,
Right.
and I know like Nogarremi is like a moniker and stuff like that, but a lot of what goes into Nogarremi is who I actually am as a person.
Yeah. Of course.
And a lot of my natural reactions aren't as, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm a funny person or anything like that
Okay.
on the face value, right? Like,
Yeah.
you have to get to know me to like see all the stupid hidden nonsense that I feel comfortable saying. Like, I have a very shielded approach to who I am,
Right.
which is seen by the fact that I use a moniker and like nobody knows my real name. Uh,
Hmm.
So there's a side that is that I am being shielded and not letting myself come out on
Sure.
microphone naturally, and kind of reevaluating that and realizing I really like doing stupid puns. Stupid puns are great. Or singing songs.
Yeah.
Like I'm a little bit, I take a little bit from everybody, right? So St. Cole
Sure.
loves to drop the bars. Tom is always
Right.
with the song lyrics and the puns.
Hmm.
This is just me and Tom always vibing on the same level. Me and Tom are very much on the same wavelength. We love puns and we love song lyrics.
Yeah.
We go well with that, but I forget 90% of the song lyrics unless they're in front of me, which is a little bit of a problem.
Sure, a little bit.
But with song lyrics come bars, and like I like to try to mix all of it together and just
Yeah.
kind of start going in on stuff. And it's a ton of fun. I had a ton of fun on G Fuel. I had a ton of fun on Juicy Game Night. Juicy Game Night might be the most fun I had on a
Yeah.
microphone since just doing r/sf.
Yeah, right.
Way back in 2019. Just a way different style, and getting back to that is nice. Like even when you see me do like the online local East Coast, and I'm hanging out with Joe and Tom and all my homies that I don't always get to talk to, there's a little bit of a difference of how I interact on there, right? Like I don't get near blackout drunk every single time that I'm on that
Sure,
tournament anymore. It was easy to do when I was in college. Now I'm getting older. I'm like, I can't keep doing this. A, my wallet hurts, and B, I got student loans to repay, and my wallet hurts. So there's parts of that. There's parts of like I have work the next morning at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Like I work 6 to 3, and I would probably, since I'm on the West Coast now, I would probably get done with the tournament around 9ish. And then I would have to immediately go to bed, but I don't want to be drunk and trying to go to sleep. It's not going to be good sleep. And it's, listen, it's a process to go through and be really, really drunk. Also, I've said a lot of crazy things on that tournament series that I don't really need to go back through and relive all the time. You'll see me bring up chicken sauce every once in a while. There's a couple of other stories on there that have thankfully faded to the ether and hopefully continue will, so I'm not going to bring those up.
Fair enough, my friend.
But yeah, I mean, part of it is like I gotta have fun on the microphone, and getting back to that kind of core of where I started commentary is where I had a lot of the fun. So finding that time again it's fun. I'm having fun. It's fun. What else can I say?
Yeah, and like you said, that's the most important thing, for just about anything you're gonna do in life. Like that, it's a little generalizing, right? But like if you can reap value out of it and not look at it strictly as like work, if you have passion for it, if you're able to be yourself, be able to be vulnerable with the people that you're sharing that space with, it makes the reward of it so much more heavy, so much heavier, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I think that's a good point when you don't quite look at it as work.
Yeah,
because I can tell you right now, when I'm working my actual job,
right,
I'm very shielded and guarded, and I'm doing my job, and I'm here for a reason, and it's to complete these tasks in whatever sequence they come through to me and get paid. Commentary is a little bit different because you are a personality and you have to bring something that differentiates you. It's gonna be, it's again, the way my brain works, it's not as cut and dry as like just be funnier and be yourself. There's a whole process that it kind of has to go through, and like my brain has to give clearance to the rest of the things that I want to do. If like I have to make it work in my brain and kind of flip a switch, but the switch is like in a locked room with like 800 locks, and I gotta open up each one. And it's a process, but having that fun, and there was something I wanted to say and I forgot it. Oh no.
Well, you talking about having fun and like how much of a difference it can make. I think that's go ahead.
Yeah, when I'm having fun, or when the commentators are having fun on the mic, I don't think that there can be a better way to make your audience have fun other than having
Yes.
that natural fun yourself.
It's so obvious.
Yeah, you can't really fake it, right? If you're
Mhm.
cruising and you're, kind of just going through the motions, people can kind of tell, and they're
Yes.
like, okay, cool, he's saying good things, but like, it's you don't stand out. You're just
Yeah.
there.
hmm
Like, I
And
can I
like
can
that's
read off frame data for you. Like, all right.
right. Right. That's something that I'll often tell like uh there's actually something that like I kind of want to discuss and see what your thoughts were, but you were talking about like when you're having the most fun on commentary, it's like, or at least in these examples that you mentioned, with like making dumb puns and like song lyrics, dropping bars, whatever it is, like being a lot more loose and less of like the quote unquote like the esports framework, right? Where it's like, you sound like the newscaster and, you've got the right cadence and rhythm. You're hitting all the right talking points about frame data, matchups, tier lists, whatever it is, right?
Right.
There's a difference there. But something that like often comes to me if I'm talking to people like in my region about commentary, because like we have a lot of people for our online events that are doing it for the first time, or are doing it and are still like very like green in the thumb. Um, I always try to tell them that like if you don't like if you're nervous, that's fine. Everybody gets nervous about it.
Right.
But if you don't actually like want to be there, and you don't care, and you don't have to, live, eat, and breathe Street Fighter, but there should be passion there, and you should want to do it, and you should like the person that you are sharing the space with, you should want to have this conversation with them. If none of those things are present, even in like a little bit, it's going to be so obvious to the audience. It comes across so clearly in ways that you don't even understand unless you like go back and listen to it. And so first and foremost is that you need to assess those things and be like, okay, do I want my 15 minutes in the spotlight, or do I actually want to talk about this and have a good time, telling people why fighting games are so sick. And there's a big difference between the two. And so like when I have newer commentators that like might reach out to me and be like, hey, like how do I get started with this, and like what should my approach be? That's always one of the first things I tell them is like, you have to make sure that the audience knows you want to be there.
Yeah, that's gonna be the really big part of it. And I think I was on the Battle Lounge, which is an Oregon tournament, and I was commentating with somebody new before there was a whole issue where they were having a snowstorm and the power went out at the streamer's
Yeah.
house, so like, we couldn't stream the rest of the tournament. But I was talking with that Neil J, and he was like, yeah, I'm just kind of getting started in commentary. I'm nervous. I don't know what to say. I'm like, listen, you just talk about what you know, because
hmm
you play Street Fighter, you know what it is, and we'll have a conversation and talk about stuff,
Yep.
right? And I'll say some things. I'll leave space for you. You'll say some things. If we ever start
hmm
talking at the same time, go ahead and continue. I'll drop off,
Right.
right? And that kind of stuff. So there's ways to kind of get inclusive with it and to
hmm
make them feel more comfortable. And part of it is,
Yes.
if you're on the mic with somebody new, you are their introduction to how
Yep.
to do a
There's a
two-person
responsibility.
commentary. Yeah,
Yep.
that's how they will initially always think, hey, this is how two-person commentary works. Matter of fact, if you go back and listen to the episode with me and Tom, there's this entire concept where Tom talks about having a nog pause, which is when I intentionally end my sentence at a certain
hmm
point so that my other commentator can speak,
Yeah. hmm
like that
Yeah.
one.
Right. I was, you know what? You cheated, man. I was like in the middle of like taking a drink because I was like, okay, he's gonna talk a little bit longer here. That's bullshit.
So it's definitely, there's definitely times for it. And sometimes the nog pause doesn't quite come across to the viewer because I'll end my sentence, I'll wait, and then I'll keep talking, right? And so there's
Sure.
always that little bit of confusion where you don't, like, now you're used to the nog pause and you're like, oh, it's my turn to speak. I'm like, no, still me. But that's how I incorporate them. So I have those little
Yeah.
pauses. I try to let people know early on, like, hey, there's going to be these little pauses. If you start
hmm
talking or we both start talking at the same time, I'll drop off. You keep
Yeah.
going, and we'll have some fun.
hmm So one of the things that I mentioned before we got off on that was like I'm interested in the philosophy behind like different commentary approaches, and something that like I can't remember, there was some, this was early on in the pandemic, somebody had a Twitter thread that was like talking about like commentary pet peeves. And now I think on its face that thread was like kind of set up to be toxic, right? Because it's really easy for somebody to talk about something that like they find critically like critically failing with commentary, and then like I either somebody is like talking specifically about you, or you can relate to what they're talking about. It's like, oh shit, like man, I like, do more people not like this or whatever? But it made me think about like I guess like shortcomings and ways that like specifically ways that people might not be cognizant of like turning off an audience, because I think as a commentator that's another responsibility you have, like to understand when you might be a little too selfish with your time and take away from the reason the audience is there, right? um so like one of the big things for me is like finding the balance of, you know, the business side of things, where it's like, you know, the play-by-play analysis, you know, talking about the upcoming match before the match starts, you know, maybe talking about the backstory, whatever it is, between the players, the character matchup, all that stuff, and then interjecting the flair of the interpersonal connection between the two commentators, where, you know, where you might be cracking jokes between each other, and maybe they're even inside jokes or something, right? It's not super apparent to the audience, but it allows them to see that you are more comfortable, you're in your element, you're having fun. It's not this forced, you know, we're both here to collect our $5 food voucher. uh
That was a good
so
one.
yeah, I thought so. uh and so I think it's really important to find a balance, but like if there is a like a peeve that I notice, I think sometimes like it's really apparent when some people, and I think you see this more at like a local level, which maybe this isn't a problem then, but like you'll see people who are just kind of, they're like, oh hey, I want to be on and talk and have people listen to me, and then they'll like not pay any attention to the match. And I think there's a big disservice there, because not only are you disengaging the viewers from why they're watching the stream in the first place, but also like from the competitor standpoint, there are so many newer people that want to go back and rewatch matches, and like they might not have that insight to know what they should be looking for. And commentators, at least to, you know, a surface to intermediate level, can provide that in ways that, you know, you might not have the mental fortitude to like understand those minute details of the match otherwise. And so I think like
Yeah.
if there's like one thing that like sticks out to me, it's like people kind of going off on tangents, not knowing when to reel it back in, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why I think the online local is a real interesting place to start, because you learn how to tangent a lot.
Sure.
And I mean a lot, a lot. But also when you're dealing, and this is uh I say dealing with Joe, but when you're commentating with Joe, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize, is you have to get him back on track. If you've never been on a
Right.
podcast with Joe, or if you never commentated with Joe Monday, you have to get him back on track, because he's a wild man, and he's the local party boy, and I mean this with
Right.
all respect. You just gotta nudge him in the right direction sometimes, and you're like, okay, I know that you love telling that couch story for the 80th time, but like, let's talk about this match, because you know it has some good stuff, and part of that is finding that moment to interject. And as when
Yeah.
you are the co-commentators to somebody's kind of tangential line, getting them back on track is an important part, and having that commentator matchup is important.
Hmm.
Uh, but you also have to know when to lean into it and go
Yes.
off on it, and so it's a really narrow double-edged sword of like,
Sure.
you don't want to ruin the fun, but you want to also have fun talking about the match, and stuff
Yes.
like that. And the way
Hmm.
that I usually deal with that is I get really hype at the little crazy stuff that is
Mm-hmm.
actually happening in the match. So like you'll hear me legitimately get excited when somebody walks half a pixel and pushes a button and
Right,
hits
right.
their confirm because that was sick. They like completely spaced themselves perfectly. Or when I look back on a situation, I see like, oh, they did this in this situation because
Mm-hmm.
they did, because their opponent was locked in the situation and previously they had done
Right,
this option, so this time they backed up and looked for this anti, went back in and then back right back up, and to beta
right,
throw,
right.
beta jump or whatever. And it's the little mind games there of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, but you have to remember 3 games earlier they did this in this situation.
Yes, of course.
Which when you're
Um,
just like watching a fighting game as an audience, you might not remember that.
yes, right. And so yeah, I guess that I think that's my point is like sometimes people I think it's easy. And again, I absolutely no fault for newer commentators doing this, but like it's easy to lose sight of the fact that you do have a responsibility to narrate what is happening. That's why you're there. And
Partially.
yeah, yeah, right. It's not the whole thing. Absolutely, I agree.
And we talked about how you have to form your own style. You can absolutely try to form your style into that of a Yipes or Eris, where you just kind of talk and
Yeah.
say random things constantly. But even they will bring it back,
Yes,
right? So when
exactly.
Yipes is commentating Dragon Ball, if he gets mixed, he is shouting out to the heavens that he
Right.
got mixed.
Right.
Uh,
And
yeah,
I was just gonna say like, and again, the thing is they understand. They still understand the responsibility. Absolutely part of their brand and why they themselves can get people to go to an event. Not even just watch an event. If they're at an event, they can get people to fly out to that event just to like hear their commentary live. That is absolutely the kind of power that they hold. But they still understand that responsibility that like it's not just to hear me like talk like have some random analogy that's like this funny story or hear me spout my catchphrases that people love. It's like also I'm still relating it to the game. That's the biggest difference, right? Because there are some people who like they'll get off on like a tangent that's like I had this I saw this dog eat a sandwich, and then they're talking about it for 15 minutes, and now 2 matches have gone by, and then you're left in like this weird nebulous area that it's like, okay, how do we get back to this?
yeah, and I feel like some of the stories so far this season, haven't quite panned out. Like commentators aren't telling as many stories because they're so focused on looking at what's happening on the screen with all of these
Yeah,
new changes that have happened, which is
sure.
also something that we wanted to talk about. Because right now
Yeah, of
the balance for this game is kind of crazy. Everybody seems to be a
very.
super strong character every time that I see them on screen. Of course, Dawson's looking a little bit worse, but even at the G Fuel
Yeah,
event on Friday, NYC Furby was still doing a ton
of
of
course.
work,
Mm-hmm.
especially against Shoto characters. So like when he played against
Sure.
Tega, he was able to really control both the Kage and the Akuma coming out of him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those things where even a character that's got nerfed is still performing really well and stuff like that. And even seeing the characters come back, so we're seeing more Kages and more Ryus, more Sagats, all because of all the buffs and stuff like that. And it's super fun to see Sakura's with Chrissy CH, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah, so I'm curious, who do you think are some of the biggest winners across the patch so far?
Yeah, Ryu and Sagat are some big winners. Definitely. The If I had to pick somebody a little bit more out there, Alex is
Yeah,
definitely looking really
big
strong.
winner. He is a real deal, real ass character now.
He's scary. I played against Prototype, I think on Monday or Tuesday,
Hmm.
and it was maybe Wednesday. It was terrifying.
Sure.
Every time I got knocked down, I'm like, I don't want to be next to this man. Why is he pushing sweep in neutral so much? Oh, he gets to dash up and get stand medium punch, which is +3 on
Yep.
block now, and I'm scared.
Increased SPD range too.
He only grabbed me once.
And that's the mark of a true grappler.
Oh, it was terrifying. But we even saw like Honda, didn't really get nerfed, got some good touches up himself. That's why we saw, No Need to Talk win the G Fuel event, going home with a lot of money, because that started out as $1,000 tournament and ended up
got
being
to like $2,000, right?
Yeah, over $2,000. It was wild.
Yeah.
So it was incredible to see everything like that, and to see all of the players, right? Knowing, like, No Need to Talk had the craziest bracket run. He went down to losers fairly early, and then he had to go through Shine NYC, the Abuki Jury, whatever player. I don't know who he plays anymore, Lucia. Then went through Punk, then went through Orange Man, then went through Destructive, I believe, and then went through so many people.
That's like top 16, top 8 at a major. That's wild.
Yeah, all in his path to just plow right through. He ended up having to to take it to, why am I blanking on this match? It was such a good one.
Are you talking about Grand Finals?
No, Grand Finals was against Space Boy. I knew that one. It's the losers finals that I can't remember.
I watched part of that event, but I don't remember if I watched losers finals or not.
Yeah, I commented the event. I can't remember.
It's all right, homie. It's been a long week.
But yeah, seeing every single person that he go through, like, he in losers finals, he ended up down. It was Zaffarino. Right, he was up against Zaffarino, and he lost 2-1, left the lobby, like, was completely gone. We had to, like, vamp for 10 minutes to get him back on, because he thought it was completely over. And like, no, it's 2-1. It's a losers finals. You gotta play. He made the comeback afterwards, like that heavy
That's
reset,
so crazy.
mental reset gave him the ability to take it there and then to take it over Space Boy. 3-0 in a reset, and then I believe 3-2 final round after, and Shin deadass true finals.
Right. And his trajectory over like the past year and a half, in I think really solidifying himself as the best Honda player in the country, has just been pretty inspiring to watch. Because, like, you didn't really hear, like, people knew about him, but not the way they do now.
Now he's a force to be reckoned with. And a lot of times people are like, Prototype, one of the the best Honda in America and stuff like that. But then No Need to Talk really came and made a big splash. Also secondarying, having the Poison in the back pocket, which is wild, because one of the worst matchups Poison can play, I think, is Honda.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So just completely different archetypes and everything like that. And he played both so well, right? He played Poison against Zaffarino's Sagat.
Yep, I remember that.
So it was a really, really fun to watch him use kind of the absence of nerfs, because I can't really say Honda didn't get too many buffs, to be fair, but he just didn't get nerfed. So
he definitely didn't get nerfed, but like three of the really big things that stick out to me for Honda, that's like literally why he didn't need that. It's like they gave him the ability to juggle V-trigger headbutt after, I think, like, light headbutt, which, like, the amount of damage that opens up is wild.
Yeah, because that goes into critical art.
Right. And then they also, I think they gave him, like, a better opportunity to juggle into, like, off of something. I can't remember specifically what, but I've seen new combos.
Light punch, medium punch, which will knock the opponent up on hit into medium hands. If you delay it at the perfect timing, you can get EX butt slam after it.
That's what I was going to say, yes.
Mid-screen.
Right, yeah. It's super messed up. And then they also gave him a 5-frame stand medium kick. It's like, bro. It's like, I actually really like watching Honda. I think he's sick. The way they designed him in this game is super cool. But yeah, now he is a freaking problem.
I think he was in a fine spot before, but
yeah.
And the change to anti-air moves can make it a little bit easier for him to just get raw jump-ins on people into large damage. I was really hoping they would nerf the amount of chip on hands and make hands like punishable, like, ever, please. Why does he get to mash hands 4 times in a row, and I can't jump out, I can't backdash, I can't push a button, and
there's a huge gap. You can just uppercut it, bro.
Yeah, just do that, right? Just risk more of your life getting a crush counter combo from Honda. All right, tell me how that goes for you.
So how do you, speaking of changes, I have to imagine you might have had a bit of a swan song for your boy Guile. How are you feeling?
It was rough. One of my most famous tweets is me tweeting out that Point Blank Bloom is 0, frowny face. Uh, I, that
What a
I,
banger.
see, what a banger. And then the immediate tweet after that was, so bot kick is -4. Which didn't get as many, but definitely still got some people being
Yeah.
like, finally. I'm like, what do you mean finally? This had no need to be -4. They took Boom away from the boy. He needs Sobot kick to control more space now, and they just neutered that. So it's I'm playing Ryu. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, shit, why not, right?
I mean, I was a Ryu player.
Yeah,
Seasons
I
one
remember.
1 through 3 ish.
Hmm.
I say 3 ish because it was like half of season 3.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a bit of reprieve where in beginning of season 2 I played Nikali because
Oh yeah.
Ryu was not existent in the game at the beginning of season
Right.
2.
Right.
Uh, it just wasn't fun to play him, but he's a ton of fun to play right now,
That's the
and
biggest thing.
yeah, that's really is the biggest thing. It's just fun to play him right. It feels like this is how he should have been, right? Like he
Yeah.
has pressure, he gets to move around the screen. He can't quite throw fireballs as much as he would like, or as much as I would like, but that's just the guile in me. I like tossing fireballs.
Sure, sure.
Uh, he's fun to play. What more can I say? I wish his fireball wasn't -1 on hit, point
Sure.
blank, but uh, it's the way thing goes.
Yep.
But he gets to move around the screen. He gets excellent low forward conversions.
Hmm.
He gets big damage. I love it. But you have your boy Akuma, which is little rough.
So here's the thing with Akuma, like the nerfs that he got make perfect sense and probably should have happened sooner.
Yes.
But like, and again, anybody who ever in their right mind tries to say that like I am an Akuma down player, you can hold that. I no, Akuma's ridiculous. He's been probably top 2 in the game since he released in season 2. I know Akuma's ridiculous. Hold on to your panties. Uh, but the other thing, I am disappointed in the Akuma changes, not because of the nerfs, but because of the like he really only got one buff. Like there's an argument that there's another one, but it's inconsequential.
Here's
And
the
also
thing,
because
though. When you're
hmm,
trying to normalize your cast so that every character is viable, you can't keep giving buffs to the toppest tier character over
well,
and over
so
and over again, which is things that they have done in the past, right? Where they have
right,
nerfed Akuma, air quotes there, but it really just opened up him to do other stuff in the game. And
sure. And so
that's not really a nerf. You're just changing how this move functions so that he gets to do a different mix up, which isn't, it's not a nerf. It's just a change of
right.
mechanics, right? Instead
So
of getting a true string of light red fireball, now they have to guess and get hit between light red fireball, heavy red fireball, and EX red fireball. Have fun. It's just like, okay.
so, so here's the thing. I didn't like the changes that I wanted were legitimately they were more quality of life than anything, and specifically to V Skill 2 and actually V Trigger 2 didn't need anything. If V Trigger 2 would have gotten what I wanted, it would have been more of a buff, but it didn't need anything. But V Skill 2 absolutely needs some help. And they literally didn't even touch it, which is hard for me to fathom because it's like you go out of your way to deliberately nerf V Skill 1, which is fine. It's in my opinion, tied with Rashid's V Skill 1 for the best in the game, and you shouldn't get a for free side switch. I get that, that's fine. Uh, but then you don't do anything to try and bolster up your other V Skill, which literally nobody uses competitively.
I know one person.
And well, sure. Uh, but like so yeah, like they didn't change that, and then like it's really weird because the buff that they gave to Akuma, the heavy punch DP buff, it does 20 more damage now and it has a better horizontal hitbox, is honestly huge, and we didn't need it. The extra damage that he gets, and also the fact that he can get his second best optimal like stun combo now without the difficulty of micro walking is silly, and there was no reason for it, but it's boring. It's like I would take something that is not even considered a buff if it was just more of an interesting change. And the fact that that wasn't there is just it was just disappointing to me. Um And so like with V skill 2, I was talking about, quality of life stuff. Like I've put upwards of 3 months into that V skill now, using it exclusively, and honestly, I really like it. I'm For the foreseeable future, it's probably going to be what I stick with. I think it's a lot of fun. It challenges me in new ways, but like there's stuff that it absolutely needs. As it is right now, I think you actually on hit and on block you build less V gauge than using V skill 1, which again doesn't make sense because if they want to give you a reason to use it and it's like doesn't have the same utility as V skill 1, being able to parry, being able to anti-air, being able to get car demon setups, right? You have all this utility. V skill 2 should grant you a little more V gauge for being a slightly worse choice objectively.
Hey man, you're looking at a Ryu player who basically had the choice
Dude.
between a parry and another parry as V skill, and one was like 4 times as long as the other one to get 2 parry frames, and it's just like, all right, I guess I'll use the one that parries immediately rather than the one that parries a year from now and gives me no Oki. Also,
for what it's worth,
there was no way before for you to ever build V trigger without opponent interaction. He needed to parry something to build V trigger, and it sucked.
And I could not agree more. I again since season 1.
Again, looking at the complaints here, it's like, I now get a target combo that uses V skill 2 versus I just want more damage or more reason to use V skill 2. It's like Ryu had a terrible choice before, and now he actually can get Oki and pressure off of using V skill 2. Like, you can still get stuff out of V skill 2. You still get nice hype combos that you don't get in V skill 1.
Yes, you are exactly right. And so like I'm saying, like it's quality of life changes, that's all. Because it's like V skill 2 is not useless, but there like at the upper echelons of competition, there's no reason to use V skill 2 as opposed to V skill 1. And even at like the intermediate level, with people trying to take it more seriously, there's not really much reason. And I just think that's not the best design choice. And to go back to what you were saying about Ryu, I've been on the train since season 1 that like I wish he had something better than parry. And the fact that he couldn't build anything on like literally all he could do was like parry stuff to build V gauge outside of crush counters, of course, or taking damage, makes no sense to me.
Yeah, but it really sucked. They gave him a parry, then they gave him V trigger 2, which was a parry, and then they gave him V skill 2, which was a parry, and then they put V shift in the game, which is another parry.
I know.
So sorry, friend. I really don't know why they can't think of other things to do with Ryu.
It's very bizarre.
Like, give him a Metsu Shoryuken for a V trigger. I don't care.
Yeah, or make Donkey Kick the V skill, right? V skill 2 or something.
Well, you can't make it a V skill now because it already exists. That was their issue, right? Like, they gave him Donkey Kick before V skill 2.
Yeah.
So you can't like gate it behind something else after you've already given it to people. That's just a lesson in anything in life. Don't promise or give people stuff and then expect them to like it when you change it. Which is why people don't like getting nerfs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very, we are loss adverse as a species, and losing stuff hurts a lot.
Very true. We like comfortability. When something changes, it's yuck. But so yeah, like Akuma's still in a great. I think he's still top 5 in the game without a doubt.
I'm mad they didn't hit back heavy punch at all. That's still.
To be honest, I also kind of am. Because I do think that move is too strong. I don't think it's necessarily an issue with the startup. Like they deliberately designed it in a way to be like a good like counter poke buffer for like long range moves, and then also like they wanted you to have like a last ditch effort.
But
like
he
option.
has a DP. Why does he need a last ditch anti-air option?
but here's the thing, like so does like every other Shoto, right? And I know here the thing, like Akuma arguably gets the most off of it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think it would be fine if that move was nerfed. I think what needs to be nerfed about it is it should not hit cross-ups as consistently as it does. I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Having a strong normal anti-air is fine.
It's the same thing like with Poison's Crouch Medium Punch. The entire interaction of how it works is they wanted it to anti-air, but the way that jump-ins are is the hurt boxes extend extremely far behind people.
Right.
Which is why people could anti-air jab on the other side a lot of the time. And it looked really funky, which they fixed, but by making it so that anti-air jabs literally just can't hit jumping opponents, I believe, something like that. Well, they changed all the hurt boxes. Okay.
Yeah, it made it much more difficult.
Yeah, it's a lot. Which is why I now crouch jab anti-air. I will walk under and crouch jab.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
when you're aiming for my head and I'm now crouching and my head is, I don't know, 3 feet below it, sometimes you jump in with and you get hit with a jab. Which I believe Dr. African actually has a great video on explaining that, of why you're still getting anti-aired by Bison down jab. It's again, it's the same thing. It's like you're aiming your jump in for the top of Bison, when Bison is crouching very close to the floor.
Right. Yeah, he's shout outs to Dr. African. He's a super knowledgeable dude, great coach, great competitor, very insightful into the more finite and under a microscope points of fighting games. He'd be a great person to learn from if you are interested in that sort of thing.
Absolutely. And just to kind of wrap this up, ending up
Sure.
talking about the season changes.
Yeah.
We talked about what characters I thought got the best end of the stick and stuff like that. Did you have like any picks of like who you think's going to be stronger this season that people might not be looking at right now? So not not the Ryus or the Kages or the Alexes, but somebody that's still in a good position or even in a better position due to the changes that either to the mechanics of the game or that their kit got.
So the number one, outside of the characters that you had touched on, the number one character for me to look out for, and I think other people should have in mind too, is Balrog. Both with the inclusion of V Shift and V Break, as well as like the changes that he got to some of his frame data when he's in V Trigger 1. Yeah, it's unreal. I genuinely, and also I'm pretty sure they gave him like more damage on like his V Trigger dash punch ball, which I don't know why.
I think he got more raw damage on just dash punch in general.
Sure, probably. I haven't looked over it super extensively, but just what I've played and what I've seen, I think Balrog is one of the biggest winners. And again, having that option with V Shift to handle situations that you might struggle with defensively otherwise, against like grapplers or against especially oppressive Shotos, I think he's going to, like, he already was not a bad character. He's already very strong, just not season 2.5 strong. But I think he's going to be represented a lot more in competitive play. I also think, and this was a character we had touched on briefly, but I think Sakura she might be like, I don't know, she might be like on par with Akuma now for the best Shoto in the game.
She's looking very scary. Listen, we're talking about all these characters that got buffs and stuff like that. We haven't even talked about Dan.
Shit, damn, you're right. That's actually facts. The man has an infinite, so he's got to be the best, right?
He has an infinite, and there's no combo breaker in this game. You're stuck. There's no burst. You're getting comboed until you die. I played against Justin Wong. I think it was yesterday. And every time I had one thought in my mind. I'm like, I'm not gonna be another video. Not gonna be another video. I gotta get out. Thankfully, he never stunned me, so
thank God.
We're good.
Thank God.
It's like defense.
Yeah. That being said, I do think Dan is pretty good. He's definitely not. He's not top tier, but he's definitely a viable character. And obviously, at some point, the Infinite's gonna get patched out. I can't remember if they actually talked about it in their like quality of life thing, where they're like, we know these bugs are here, we're gonna fix them. I can't remember if that was something they addressed or not.
I don't think so. And honestly,
wouldn't that be funny if they left it in?
Yeah, I don't really want them to remove it. It's difficult to do. You have to get a stun. It has to be in a corner, and not only that, it's difficult to do.
Is it actually?
You have to partially charge Go Hadouken some of the time. Like, it's not consistent. You don't have to consistently do it throughout the entire combo. You also have to get the Dancel every single time.
Yeah, right. I knew that much.
but I know they're fixing the fact that all the sound is mono. They're going to change it back
Yeah.
to having stereo for all
Hmm.
the
Yes.
blind or
Very good.
otherwise disabled people that use it like that.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, some other stuff. Nothing. I'm looking at it right now. Nothing about the Damfinite. They're removing the bug for Steam players where if you take a screenshot during gameplay, it crashes. Uh,
Oh, that's cool. That's good.
that actually used to exist before. They fixed it and then brought it back because it was just, people were missing the fact that they could just instantly, alt F4 their game by pushing one button. So
Right.
they brought it back for a brief moment,
Nice.
but
How
it's
sweet of
gonna
them.
it's gonna disappear real soon. So push those F12s while you can. Just just be careful. You might be missing some points the next time you open up Street Fighter.
So yeah, we were talking about like big winners and characters that maybe people aren't looking out for. Like I said, Balrog I think is number one. Sakura I think is arguably on the same level as Akuma now as a Shoto. And she didn't even get that much in the way of buffs. She only got a couple things, but she was already in such a strong position before, just an underrepresented character. Um, and uh, I think the other character that we're going to see more of is Cammy. She,
Unfortunately.
yes, unfortunately, Scammy can go die in a hole. Uh, she was already super crazy strong, but I'm convinced that anybody who stopped playing her just because she's super boring, not because of any actual nerfs she got.
Yeah, here's the thing when you look at Cammy. You look at Cammy's matchup against all the top tiers, and I think besides Rashid and Seth, she could beat all the other top tiers fairly consistently.
Sure.
She had a good matchup to them, right? When you're
Hmm.
talking about Urian, Akuma, Guile, those are good matches for Cammy to go into, especially
Hmm.
when she gets a bar.
Right.
Uh, and then they just keep giving her buffs. Like
Yep.
remember when they gave her the jump air throw for no reason?
Yeah. Right. And like, sure, we meme on how that move looks, but like, why does she need that?
You
Like,
know, because when she's jumping out of the corner and sees that you're jumping to keep her, there's, she has to have some way to put you into the corner and reverse the pressure. She was
yes, of
missing
course.
that.
Hmm.
Uh, so it's small things like that. I think to touch on some other characters that I still think are going to be an issue. Zeku got some interesting
Ja
changes this
Zaku
season.
is crazy good now.
Urian actually didn't get too many buffs, and a lot of the time, doing knee drop is going to be more difficult to do now.
Hmm.
Some of the metallic spear stuff is a little bit worse, but Urian, I think by far out of all the people that can get damage off of doing V shift and not doing V break is one of the best, right?
Yes.
Having the ability to V shift, just get the charge. Like it's just long enough if
Hmm.
you successfully V shift to get the charge to
Yep.
EX headbutt, and then you can get the tackle, which will give you
Right.
the Oki. Or if you have Aegis, you can pop Aegis and get
Hmm.
more damage or whatever. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that can really affect how it gets involved.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be pretty crazy. They also made it easier for them for Urians to cancel Cherry Tackle into CA, which I think is just again quality of life.
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
Let's talk about
Um.
something that they
Oh yeah.
really added that does absolutely nothing to the game. They just added zoom in on some moves.
Yeah. You know,
I appreciate
I'm
it.
not, yeah, I was just gonna say I'm okay with it because like you already see with V Shift like the way it is designed, and part of it is functionality because the whole thing is it's intended to be a defensive mechanic that gives you the opportunity to assess the situation and try and punish accordingly. But adding that slowdown is a neat effect, and it's a double-edged sword. It both adds the functionality, but it also looks really cool. So they clearly have in mind some sense of like cinematic drama increasing the experience for viewers and players and that sort of thing. And I think
Yeah,
that's great. You,
and
you look at a game like Tekken that like the hypest moments, even if they don't make sense, even if you've seen them a million billion times, are the slowdowns and like the weird interactions and like, oh my God, I can't believe that whiffed, right? And it matters. People notice that stuff. So I don't mind Street Fighter taking a page out of their book.
Yeah, so the slowdown on V shifter is one thing, but similar to Cody's Zonk, like EX Zonk charged up, where the camera like zooms in and shakes, they added
Mm-hmm.
that effect to a couple of moves too. So like
Mm-hmm.
reuse EX Shoryuken does it.
Yep.
Colleen V trigger to Ice Lance when she's dashing at you and with the arm
Mm-hmm.
out will trigger it. It's kind of all over the place on what moves have it, and
Yeah.
it looks weird to somebody who has played the game for a
Right.
couple of years. But overall, I still think it looks really cool and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I anything you can do to make, because the game, it's it's not old in FGC terms. But Third Strike is still being played by thousands of people across the world. That game is, 20, almost 25 years old now at this point.
Yeah.
But like, it has been running its course and it has been around for a while. So anything you can do to kind of, add a little bit of flair, add a little bit of glitz to it, and get people to be like, oh, hey, like that looks really cool. And maybe it'll bring in some new people. And in regards to like staying power, they might seem like, oh, like I didn't know Street Fighter could look that cool. Or vice versa. On the other side, it's like, Street Fighter's feeling a little stale, and now they've got something to spice it up. It's not a whole new package, but it's something, and I do appreciate that effort.
Well, speaking of Spice, I'm looking forward to whatever Spice comes out of you next. I'm not sure
Oh,
what
thank
event you're
you.
going to be commentating next, but you got anything else that you want to promote or anything like that?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, just thank you for having me on. It was really an honor. I'm very grateful to consider you a friend and a colleague and get to work with you and just chat with you anyways. So I really appreciate being on here. It was a great time. As regards to promotion, I have a Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MrMostafles. I stream pretty regularly, normally like in the 3 day a week range when I can find time after work or on the weekends. And then I also have Twitter where I'm very, very active because of the FGC at MrMostafles on Twitter. Um, and I believe the next event I'll be commentating, at least the one that I know of for sure, is going to be Wednesday Night Fights. I think it'll either be next week or the week after. I'm not sure because there's another person added into the mix now, between me, St. Cole, and Flexus. There's also another gentleman. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. My apologies. Um, but I'm pretty sure I'm in the rotation next week, so we'll see. At any rate, if you guys follow me there, or if you follow Nogarremi, he's always super great about supporting and retweeting stuff. So you'll see it somehow. Um, but thank you so much for having me on, man. I had a really, really good time.
Yeah, and it was an absolute blast chatting with you. Thanks so much. You actually have been the person that hit me up the earliest about it. You hit me up, I think,
Hey,
3.5 weeks ago, like, hey, can I be on? And I'm like, I already have one lined up this next time, but I can get you in on March. And you're
hell
like,
yeah.
that's a long time away. Don't know when I'll be available. But I was like, okay, well, we'll review it. And, after I, put out whatever episode the Lizardman episode, which came out 8 days late. Hopefully this one is not that late. So again, thanks to everybody for watching, and have a good day.
Adios.
Bye.